BNC Live, I'm Laverne McGee. It is Friday, August the 20th. The State Department set to provide an update on Afghanistan shortly. Earlier today, we heard from President Biden and the Pentagon. A short time ago, President Biden spoke to the American people and the press about the situation in Afghanistan. He offered encouragement to those Americans and the Afghans who have supported the U.S. mission in Afghanistan.
But let me be clear. Any American who wants to come home, we will get you home. But make no mistake, this evacuation mission is dangerous. It involves risks to our armed forces, and it's being conducted under difficult circumstances. I cannot promise what the final outcome will be, or what it will be, that it will be without risk of loss. But as Commander-in-Chief, I can assure you that I will mobilize every resource necessary. And as an American, I offer my gratitude to the brave men and women of the U.S. Armed Forces who are carrying out this mission.
In 2 decades, the United States spent $83 billion on weapons and equipment, helping to supply Afghan national security forces. All of that now has been taken by the Taliban. And joining me now is Major Ronald Martin with the U.S. Army Reserves. He served 3 tours in Afghanistan from 2011 to 2019. Welcome back to BNC Live, Major, and also thank you for your service as well to this country.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you being here. All right, we just heard not too long ago from President Biden speaking about the crisis unfolding in Afghanistan. I want to start by playing a portion of what he said.
This is one of the largest, most difficult airlifts in history, and the only country in the world capable of projecting this much power on the far side of the world with this degree of precision is the United States of America.
I'd like your reaction to how the United States is evacuating Americans and Afghans.
Well, I think the response is appropriate considering the short-term notice in evacuating. I think they probably could have done a better job letting those partners know that their intention was to leave and how they planned on leaving. I know that they did leave some equipment for them, and I think there's a question as to type of equipment it was. I know it was some small arms and some armored vehicles. I don't know if a lot of technology specifically was left there for them, but I know that the vehicle, small arms, and some ammunition was left along with bottled water and energy drinks.
So who exactly is to blame here, the fleeing Afghan army or the fleeing Americans?
Well, I think both can be equally blamed. I think there is some concern about our true honesty with the Afghan forces when we decided to depart. We did it in a manner which I don't feel personally that it was in the spirit of our 20-year relationship with the Afghan government and the Afghan forces. To leave at night, not let them know that we were leaving some of those bases, and just turning off the lights and leaving, in my personal opinion, just not the right way to do business with a partnership that we had for 20 years.
Can those weapons that are left behind, can they actually be used against Americans?
Well, the challenge obviously is because you use small arms, they could be used if Americans are in that area. So we're talking about small arms, rifles, maybe some small cruiser weapons. Normally they're 5.56 millimeter. That's a normal NATO caliber round. So we're not the only forces that use that type weapon or that caliber weapon. So possibly yes, but it's not like they could attack Americans on American soil with those weapons and that equipment. They could probably attack some of our NATO partners that are still operating in the area. But as far as attacking us and some, American civilians that may still be there.
What about those who say that perhaps there was some sort of inside job going on? Meaning, how did they fall so quickly, unless perhaps there were people in the Afghan side of things who colluded with the Taliban to make things drop so quickly. Is that a possibility?
Well, anything's possible. It's unlikely, but possible. The one thing you have to remember is that we provided a lot of fighting spirit and force for the Afghan army and the Afghan National Police. I mean, we trained with them. We ran joint operations with them outside of their special forces, which they operated for a good portion the last several years on their own, running their own missions. Other than that, the larger part of the army is, they had a potential to be, poorly trained, underfunded, and underpaid, and separated from your family, and in a situation where you put your life on the line and you may not get paid. Pay was sporadic at times. These all are they can contribute to the fact that the Army chose not to fight. They didn't have faith in their government. They didn't have faith in their superiors.
We do have to interrupt. We need to go to the Pentagon now. Let's listen in and hear what they have to say on this briefing. Thank you.
I'll run through some of those specifics here during that update. First, the military footprint in Kabul is approximately 5,800 total troops on the ground. Our mission to defend Kabul airport and evacuate people from Afghanistan as quickly and safely as possible continues. The airport remains secure. Evacuation flights are steadily increasing, and we are doing everything we can to maximize safe evacuations. In the past 24 hours, 15 C-17s arrived with several hundred more troops that allowed us to get to that 5,800 number, and also some supplies. As of 0300 Eastern EDT today, this morning, and for the previous 24 hours, 16 C-17s and 1 C-130 departed Kabul. These flights contain nearly 6,000 passengers, including a couple hundred American citizens. Since August 14th, as the President noted earlier today, we have airlifted approximately 13,000 total evacuees during the operation. In total, since the end of July, the cumulative number of people moved out of Afghanistan is greater than 18,000. 18,000. There are SIV applicants, at-risk Afghans who have worked alongside us throughout our time in Afghanistan, and other vulnerable Afghans, including women and children. Many of the flights leaving Kabul have stopped in designated safe havens and staging bases in Qatar and others, where State Department and military personnel are actively processing passengers for their follow-on flights to other destinations. We did pause flights earlier today leaving Kabul while we adjusted resources and personnel to ensure a temporary capacity issue at one of our stopover locations, although flight operations have resumed. And U.S. military flights to Qatar and other locations are departing Kabul as we speak right now. We are looking at additional locations for these initial flights to land. We're grateful for our allies, including Germany, where flights will land today, who are cooperating with us in this global effort. Aircraft availability is not an issue. We intend to maximize each plane's capacity. We're prioritizing the evacuation of people above all else, and we're focused on doing this as safely as possible with a great sense of urgency. We have not experienced any hostile acts since my last update. The troops on the ground are steadfast in an extremely dynamic environment. We see a tremendous amount of discipline, humanity, and professionalism in their mission. We continue to assess the operating environment and will aggressively address any threat to the mission. The safety and security of American citizens and service members, our partners who remain in Kabul alongside us, and the Afghan people is absolutely our top priority. I want to reinforce that we are focused on the mission of this great national importance. The massive effort is the result of teamwork and the tireless commitment of U.S. military to supporting the U.S. government around the world. Mr. Kerr.
Thank you, General. Okay. Bob, there you are.
Hey, John.
Not in your normal seat.
Thank you. President Biden, in his remarks earlier today, made a reference to having, I forget what word he used, but essentially rescued 169 Americans outside, beyond the perimeter, I believe he said. Can you explain what that was, how that happened, what happened?
Yeah, he's referring to a small number of people that our troops they were very close to the perimeter, the perimeter of the airport, very close, and in a short amount of time, with a short amount of distance, some of our troops were able to go out there and retrieve them and bring them in.
Just on foot, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's 169 Americans, or do you know the breakdown?
I don't have the breakdown of of everybody.
And then a related question would be, has there been any further consideration to going further beyond the perimeter to do that?
Well, you heard the president today say that he wants to do whatever is going to be necessary to rescue Americans and our Afghan partners in need. I'm not going to speculate one way or another about potential future operations. The main focus is on security at the airport and making sure that, as the general said, that air operations resume and continue as unimpeded as possible. But clearly, we will be prepared and postured if we had to do something additional. But I won't speculate right now. Court.
Did the U.S. troops have to go through any Taliban?
All right, welcome back. You've been listening to a live briefing from the Pentagon. I want to bring back in our guest now, Major Ronald, to give us some reaction to what we all just heard about what's happening there in Afghanistan. Major, thanks for sticking with us. I know you heard most of that. What are your thoughts and your reaction to what they're saying?
Well, I think it's a good measured response. The idea is to get as many people out there safely as possible. It is important that air operations continue unimpeded, and unimpeded would be as long as it's safe and there's no small arm fire or rockets or anything launched at aircraft and things of that nature. So that's an appropriate response. And it's important to know that they're willing to go out and get those people that are outside of that perimeter and bring them in and safely evacuate them. So that's good messaging for everybody concerned.
Major Martin, you did refer to it as messaging, which of course we know as the American people. We can't know all of the information. There's a lot of confidential matters, of course. Do you think there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we just aren't aware of? And obviously, there's concern for that. I know they can only share a certain amount with the American people. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's necessary for operational security. When you have operations going on that are concurrent, meaning they're going on right now, and there's safety involved, then you have to tailor your message to avoid talking about specific logistics and what you're doing, what your plans are, and things of that nature. So that's just something that improves the security of any operation. An operation delicate in this nature, knowing that lives are on the line, then you have to limit what you're talking about and information you're actually giving. But again, like I said, the president's willing to do what needs to be done to get Americans home safely. And if they're outside of that immediate perimeter, then I imagine there will be some talk with other coalition forces about what to do to bring those people safely in.
Yeah, and that's what we all want to hear, is the safety of people being brought back in a quick and safe fashion. Thank you so much, Major Martin, once again for joining us here, and once again also for your service to this country. And coming up, most of those rebellious Lone Star Democrats are back at home after dodging an election reform bill in the state assembly. But coming up, there's still a card or two that could be played in their effort to protect voters in their state from new voter restrictions. That story and much more when we come back. You're watching BNC Live.